What's up, Hockey Town? Welcome to the Word on Woodward Draft Lottery Special presented by Labatt Blue. We just heard that the Red Wings will be drafting 8th in this year's draft. Some news there, I guess. We were hoping for that first or second slot, but 8th, we'll take it. It's in the first round. We all believe in Steve Yzerman. We want you guys to be bringing us all of your thoughts on Twitter with the hashtag LGRW. But for now, I'm going to get some thoughts from our friends Ken Kal and Regner. Thanks so much for joining me, you guys. So first, I want to start off with Ken. We just saw Montreal Canadiens will be drafting first in the 2022 draft that will be held in Montreal. Red Wings at 8th. Some initial reactions from that.
Carley and Art, good to be with you today, and I guess I was expecting a lot of drama coming into today. I was expecting the Red Wings to draft one, get the first or second selection, but really in the back of my mind, I figured they're not going to move up or down. I think they're going to stay 8th, and that's where they're at right now. But I just cannot believe the New Jersey Devils. I mean, how many number 1 and number 2 picks are they going to get, down the road? And they lucked out. Some teams must have a lot of luck, because if you look at the Devils, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, last year they picked 4th overall. Those other 2 were first overall picks. And I've always said this, that if you're a team and you do have the luck and you got your fingers crossed, look at Toronto with Marner and Matthews, and now you look at the New Jersey Devils, your path to success really is going to take you to the top quicker than some of the other teams, like perhaps maybe the Detroit Red Wings, because they haven't received a number 1 or number 2 pick in back-to-back years. Right. So some teams have the luck, some teams don't, but the Red Wings are number 8. And, when you think about the Red Wings, though, one of the things I'm really excited about, and they're going to get a good player here at number 8, too. And just like last year when they picked higher up than that, and they picked Simon Edmondson at 6th overall. But I like the pipeline that the Red Wings have right now. They've got a good stable of players that are coming up through the pipeline, guys like Edmondson and Kosa and everybody else that they've drafted over the last several years. So excited about the Red Wings. They're youngsters in the pipeline. But what about you, Carley? What do you think about where the Red Wings are picking?
I was with you. Of course, we always say hope for the best, but expect the worst. I think. I think I got that right. But, I was thinking that the Red Wings would sit at 8th. I know before the draft lottery started, we were thinking, both Ken and I picked 8th, and Art was thinking 10th, which I was surprised. Usually you're very optimistic with the draft
Not
lottery.
Not when it comes to the draft. This draft thing, I'm not a big fan of the NHL draft lottery. As many people know, it's been well documented, and I'm still not a big fan of it, and I think it's a kind of a joke.
Well, we were tempering expectations here while we were watching.
At least it wasn't 10th.
We were hoping. We had our fingers crossed. At least it wasn't 10th. And you know what, Art? You got to look at it that way. We have a great prospect pool here with the Detroit Red Wings already. And then looking at some of the guys that will be in that 2022 draft, you know what? I think we could get some great guys at pick 8. So I'm not disappointed. Of course, I would have loved to have first or second pick, but it's still in the first round. We still have a bright future in this Detroit organization already. So adding another great player to that at the 8th pick would not be a bad thing. The last time the Detroit Red Wings had the 8th pick was in 1985. Brent Fedek, who had a great career. I wrote some of his stats down, but we can dive into that a little bit later. I want to know how you felt about it. I know you were thinking 10th, but when 10th went by, and it wasn't the Detroit Red Wings at pick number 8, you can't be too disappointed.
Well, when 10 went by and then 9 went by and Detroit wasn't there, I'm thinking, oh, well, who knows? If they're not at 8, that means they're either at 1 or 2, and of course they're at 8. Again, and I don't mean to be, sound like negative or something, but number 8 is as good as they could have hoped for based on their history and the way this lottery system has not favored them. Obviously with the management team that Steve's put together, they know how to draft. They've had very, very good drafts under Steve Yzerman, and and I would expect that they'll get a good player. I do think last year was really odd because Simon Edmondson kind of fell in their lap at number 6, and I don't think that is. I don't think that's going to happen. There's 2 really stud defensemen, and in Nemitz and Jiricek. I don't think they're going to fall to 8. So I really think what the Red Wings are going to end up doing at the 8th position is going for a highly skilled forward, and I think they're really going to look at center. I think they really need a center. There's some very intriguing names of center, and a guy that I think could drop who's higher than then number 8, that would be Matt Savoy of the Winnipeg Ice. I mean, that might be a guy because he's only 5'9". Now, I know everyone's saying, well, wait a second. Everybody on the Red Wings is like 5'9". Well, hey, I'm 5'9". It's great. But
you're a lot slimmer these days.
Taller than me.
Yeah, really. But, I like Matt Savoy. I think he's a really highly skilled player. I mean, if he were to drop, if he doesn't, I think that there is, again, a group of people. But, look at the numbers that he's put up. I think he's really highly skilled. He's a center iceman. I think even though he's, he's not big in size, he plays a lot bigger than he is. That would be the guy that would be, I guess, for lack of a better term, even though they play different positions, I would say that would be the guy that I would hope might drop down to 8. But I think everybody else that's rated higher, especially the 2 defensemen, like I said, they're not going to be at number 8. So I think that Detroit has a pretty good talent pool at number 8, and I do have a couple of names here, and I'll give you the fellas I think that the Red Wings might have their eye on.
So, Ken, Art touched on this just a tad, but do you think Steve Yzerman will draft the next best player, or will he look at a centerman because we're a little thin at center ice?
Well, I know, Art, I was talking to you a little bit earlier today, and you told me that Steve will definitely take the best player that's available at that position. But with that said, I think the Red Wings down the road here need to take a look at their center iceman because let's face it, when you're a team in the National Hockey League, you just can't go and pick a center iceman off the tree or go to the store and buy one. It just doesn't happen because if you have 2 good center icemen on your team, you're going to sign them to long-term deals, and teams just aren't going to get rid of them because that's what you build your team around. So the Red Wings have to draft center icemen, and now's the time to start looking. I think the Red Wings have solidified their defensive core over the last several years in the draft. You look at all the players that Steve Yzerman has drafted so far. A lot of them are really solid defensemen that are really making progress. So I think back on the blue line, the Red Wings are pretty steady, and you certainly hope that with the 9 or 10 defensemen that he's drafted over the years, you look at them and you say, I hope we can hit on 3 or 4, maybe possibly 5 of them down the road at some point. They took Sebastian Cossa last year as a goaltender, and hopefully we've got our fingers crossed that within the next 2 or 3 years he can have a good couple seasons with the American League and the Grand Rapids Griffins and then move up to Detroit. But I think it's starting to get time, and if you look at the draft right now, there's a lot of center icemen in the draft, a lot of wingers too. I think maybe you start looking at your forwards.
Yeah, so in the past few years, we've had 2 defensemen, Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson, a goaltender in Sebastian Cossa, and then, of course, we got a winger out of Lucas Raymond just in the past 3 years that I'm looking at. But I know, Art, you've been glancing down at your notes here.
I had to put my glasses on. Yeah.
You have a few guys that you're keeping your eye on in this prospect pool, and most of them, like you mentioned, are centers.
Right, exactly. I mean, again, and I not to sound redundant, I mean, if Nemitz or Yerichev is there at number 8, the defenseman, those guys are projected to be, 1-2 defensemen in the NHL. I think Steve's got to grab them, but I agree with what Kenny's saying is that they have a plethora of pretty high-end talent. I mean, Edvinson's a Red Wing next year, and if he isn't, I would be greatly disappointed. But Albert Johansson's really come on in Sweden. He's going to be here next year too. Kind of a mobile defenseman. Kind of a Nick Leddy type of guy. Maybe even a little bit higher end. Maybe not quite Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar, but he's kind of in that category. He's really come on. So I think defensively, and if you look at like Sabrango, and don't forget about Jared McIsaac. He was healthy. He spent the whole year at Grand Rapids. I love, Shai Boom from the University of Denver. Tamisto, who also played at Denver. Emil Vero. I mean, I can go on and on and on about the defensemen. So again, unless one of the 2 defensemen, as I said, Nemitz or Yerichek are there, they're going to go forward, and I think they're going to go center. And a couple of guys that I really like, Frank Nazer, who is from Mount Clemens, is going to Michigan next year. I really, really like, Frank. I think he's a really good player. Played for the development program in Ann Arbor, or I used to be Ann Arbor, now Plymouth, Michigan. Forgive me. But I like Frank a lot. I like Connor Geekie. He's big. He's a little slow, but the guy that I really think that they may actually go for, and I'm not, Connor Geekie here, look at his numbers too. Now, he's 6'4", 205. He's a center. 70 points for the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL. A little bit slow, not maybe as quick, but he's big and he has size. And he's a really, really good player. I would have to defer to, obviously the Red Wings, Chris Draper, Steve Yzerman, and that whole scouting staff, whether or not they would get him. But another guy that I really, really like is Cutter Gauthier. He is committed to Boston College. He's also, real quickly, I know I'm kind of jumping around here. The U.S. has a lot of high-end forwards on the development program. I know they came in second in the U18s to Sweden this year, but Cutter, not only does he have a great name, but I really think that this is a guy who does have size. He put up 65 points in 54 games. I think they're looking at somebody like that. They have to replenish their forward core. They have to replenish center ice. I know center's a really, really difficult position to play, but I really think where the Red Wings are at right now, because Kosa, he's going to be in GR next year in Grand Rapids. He's going to play well. Kosa's having a great playoff in the WHL right now with his Edmonton team. So I'm not worried about that. I think defense is okay. I think whatever the Red Wings end up doing, I think they're going to go to forward. I really do think forward. And there's some high-end wings that I also like, but I think I think it's going to be a center. I think it's going to be a center at 8.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, I'll get your choice after, but I'm looking at these, knowing now that we're picking at 8th, looking at the list that you sent us yesterday that we've all dove into. I like Connor Geekie. I like his size, and he's playing really well for the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL, and I just think that it's just adding some size up front would be really beneficial for the Detroit Red Wings. Ken, what do you think?
Well, you look at Michael Rasmussen, right? And he started really playing really well in the last couple of weeks of the season, and I like the way he was creative out there and made some really good plays in the last couple of weeks and made a couple good plays against the New Jersey Devils. But he's starting to fill out. He's starting to build, that body up in that 6'5" frame. So I can see where the Red Wings would like to get a little bit bigger up front as well. You think about it, you think back in the day when the Red Wings had Nyquist and Tatar, they were shifty type forward players, but you know what? They didn't really have the size. And when you look at Steve Yzerman, when they drafted the defenseman, it seems like everyone is a redwood tree. I mean, they're all 6'4", 6'5". You look at Mo Seider, Edvinson's a big, tall guy. Down the road, the Red Wings are going to be really, really tall and really, really big back there on the blue line. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went with bigger forwards and bigger wingers like you mentioned. So that wouldn't be a surprise. And the other thing about Steve Yzerman is just keep it in mind, because when I think of Steve Yzerman, sometimes he thinks outside the box, and he might take someone that we don't even know about who's going to be on our list right here.
Right.
So all you got to do is look at Mo Seider and look what he did, and you just never know. I do know this. Steve Yzerman and his scouts have been really working hard, and they're going to get a solid player at number 8.
That is one thing we know for sure. We knew for sure going into this draft lottery, no matter where the Red Wings fell, we knew Steve Yzerman was going to get us a dynamic player out of this prospect pool. Art, you looked like you wanted to say something.
Well, I was just going to say something. There's a couple of wingers, and I know all about size, but remember, Elmer arrives next year from Sweden. Elmer Soderblom, who is, what, 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". So there's going to be a little bit of size up front, because Elmer probably might start out in Grand Rapids, but Elmer's going to get every opportunity to be a Red Wing. I mean, I don't know exactly when, but he'll be up in the red and white sometime next year. If you really want a dark horse candidate,
yeah, I do.
I am going to say if Steve picks the diamond in the rough, the guy that I like, he plays for Rogla, the team that Mo Seider played for in Sweden. He is his nationality is Swiss. He's from Switzerland, but he plays in the SHL. Marco Kasper. Keep an eye on him.
I was looking at that as well. I'm wondering, these SHL prospects that we have, is that something that maybe Steve Yzerman's going to look at, knowing that he's had so much success?
Well, here's the thing. All you got to do is ask Mo Seider, right? He played in the same league. Say, hey, what's this guy all about, right? And he can give you the inside scoop.
Right. Well, and another thing, too, I mean, obviously Håkan Andersson, well, that'll be the determining factor if they take him. Whatever Håkan says, his word's gospel when it comes to European prospects, especially in Sweden. So we'll see. But there's a lot of good talent. And they'll get one. But, again, I really do think the forward position is probably something that the Red Wings would like to replenish a little bit with some high-end talent. talent. They're going to need a couple breaks along the way. Hopefully, whomever they pick at number 8 can blossom like a Lucas Raymond or Moritz Seider, or I believe what Simon Evanson's going to do next season here in Detroit. So, I would put it this way: the way the draft history has been under Steve, if you're the first round pick of the Red Wings, their first overall pick, regardless if you're not going to be number 1, but number 8 in this case, there's going to be a lot of pressure on you considering the guys that came before you. Edmondson, I think, is on the team next year. Obviously, we look at what Lucas Raymond did, and then you see, Mo Seider, who has been truly a godsend. So, there's going to be a little bit of pressure on this young man, but I think whomever it is, he'll be good. He'll come through, and I think he'll be a center.
So it seems as though the Red Wings are stacking up the blue line. But, Ken, we're talking about how thin we are at center ice and wanting maybe a winger or a centerman. But what are some positions that you're looking at after all of that? We just talked about the forwards. What's another position that you're looking at that could need some help on this organization?
Well, I've always thought that it wouldn't be a bad choice to take a goaltender every year in the draft. Now, last year the Red Wings moved up and got Kosa. And I just think that the Red Wings, other than Kosa, really need to strengthen that part of their stable right now, because you can always use extra goaltenders with some of your later round picks. And usually goaltenders, you look at Pekka Rinne, he was a 8th or 9th round pick, and he turned out to be a terrific goaltender.
King Henrik, too, for the Rangers was like
exactly
low round pick.
So I just think that, we talk about the center ice position. That's a need, obviously, going forward. But again, I think goaltenders, it wouldn't be bad to take a couple of goaltenders late in the later rounds as well.
It's never bad to take a goaltender. I know we've talked about many times that building a Stanley Cup team starts in the net and you build out. So, we have some great options here. And, of course, Sebastian Kosa, I know Art's his #1 fan. Can't wait to see him with a winged wheel on his sweater. But we talk about pick number 8. Disappointed it wasn't 1 or 2. But there are some notable 8th overall picks in Adam Boquist, Zach Werenski, William Nylander. There are so many good players in the league currently that were picked at 8. So I don't think can go wrong with this pick. Pick number 8 is still a high draft pick. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the future. But we also have another hole to fill in this organization, and that's at the head coach position. So I know we were talking about this kind of before we went live. Is that going to play into the draft here in July?
Well, I think there's no rush on Steve Yzerman trying to sign a head coach, and I think they're going to take their time. They want to make sure that they get the right person for the job that will take this team up to the next level. But I know before I talk a little more about the coaches, I do know that I would really like to see what the identity of this team is going to be going forward. And I think I have a picture in my mind of how I think this team would like to be. And I think back to the 1970 Montreal Canadiens, where they were solid on the blue line with guys like Guy Lapointe and Larry Robinson, Serge Savard. And if you were lucky enough, if you were a forward, to get behind them, then you had to face an all-star goaltender by the name of Ken Dryden. So that's the direction I see the Red Wings heading right now with all these draft choices that are defensemen. If once they get big and strong and can shut teams down on the blue line, they get also good goalkeeping. Now it's the forwards that can come into the picture and really get the job done offensively. And when you look at those great Montreal teams too, they had guys like Andre Richard, they had Yvan Cournoyer, they've had Guy Lafleur, all those players, and their success because of not only their checking, but their success came because they were also a very good defensive team and were solid in goal too. So that's the identity that I see the Red Wings having in the future. At least that's what I picture. As for a new head coach, again, I don't think Steve was going to rush into a decision right now. Sure. But I really believe, just by hearing his press conference, that the coach that's going to come in has to have some type of defensive standard and the willingness to cut the goals against and be better on the penalty kill and specialty teams. And whoever comes in and does coach, the emphasis will be relying on overall team defense, forwards playing on both sides of the puck, and really cutting down those goals against. And I think that's the structure that the new head coach will bring.
I also want to just say, don't forget about Jonathan Berggren, who had 60 points for Grand Rapids. He's going to be on the team next year too. He's, he'll be a winger. I believe he's a top 6 forward. I think he'll get every opportunity. He might not be a top 6 forward at the start of the season, but so there is sort of help on the way with the forwards. But I'm talking high-end, really high-skilled forwards, especially center. I think that Steve, real quickly, is going to address if I don't think they're going to draft the second line center, in Montreal in late, or is it early July? I guess it is in early July. But I do think that they're going to get a player that could be very, very good. I think in free agency they're going to address maybe a second line center, maybe another second line forward. I mean, they need goal scoring too. So I mean, if you can get a couple of top 6 forwards in free agency, I don't know how many are available, or by the time free agency rolls around, most of these guys sign with their team. But I think that those are needs. As far as a coach goes, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. It's going to be a disciplinarian. This is going to be a guy, when these guys get after practice or whatever, or after a game, they're going to get in their car. They're going to be cursing this guy out, whomever this coach is. They're not going to be happy with him.
Scotty coming back or what?
Yeah, well, Scotty or I don't think Mike Babcock's coming back, but I think somebody along that ilk, someone who's pretty demanding. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think that it's going to be a coach that is a little bit. And this is not a reflection on Jeff Blashill, because, Jeff Blashill, we wish him nothing but the best. I think Steve went out of his way to tell you what everybody in this organization and everybody who's dealt with Jeff Blashill feel about him as a coach and as a man. Good, a tremendous human being. But Jeff is not, kind of prickly, shall we say. And so I think that this next coach is going to have thorns, and they're going to be pretty sharp. And I think a few of these players are going to feel it. And I think that that's probably what the Red Wings need at this point. Sometimes a Red Wing, it's like when you discipline, your mammoth puppy that's like 7 feet tall or whatever. You love him to death and you want the best for him, but sometimes you have to discipline him. And I think that that's exactly what the next coach is going to have to do to this Red Wing team, which is going to still be a very young team.
That's absolutely true. Unless we forget, we've been talking about this first round, 8th pick that we have for the Detroit Red Wings, but there are 9 other picks that the Detroit Red Wings have. And when you look at some of the former players that we talk about all the time, iconic players that we've had in this organization, like Pavel Datsyuk, who was drafted, I believe, 171st, there's so much more than just this first round. So a lot of exciting things happening around this 2022 NHL draft that we have coming up in early July in Montreal. Of course, we have Canadians at the first round. But yeah, look at this. I mean, look at all these drafts that we have. All these draft picks that we have. So it's not just the 8th overall that we have. So that's, I think, something that we can be excited about moving forward in the 2022 draft. In Montreal, as I mentioned, Ken, it looks like you had something to add.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy. It's never easy. But, when you have the top 10 prospects to look at and you can choose, you kind of know who those players are. But the real key in the draft, I believe, is finding those diamonds in the rough, as Art mentioned a little bit earlier. And that's where, if you can pick out some gems in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, or even later, man, that just helps your organization flourish so much quicker. And that's the key right there. Try to find those diamonds in the rough. And as you mentioned, Red Wings have, 10 picks this year?
Yep.
So it's going to be exciting.
And it seems to be Steve Yzerman's bread and butter is to find the diamonds in the rough, as we see out of Moritz Seider.
He's got a history of it.
Yeah.
Well, and the Red Wings have a history of it, although, real quickly, Pavel Datsyuk, I can remember when Jimmy Nill was still here before he took over the Dallas Stars. I always call this my Dr. Zhivago story. He would tell he went out to see Pavel Datsyuk play. Like, he was like the rage in some like industrial town in Russia where he was from. I can't pronounce it. So, but he said that he was on a sleigh, an actual sleigh, with being pulled by an actual reindeer. And he was going out to some dilapidated rink to see Pavel Datsyuk play hockey. And that he was in a sleigh, and the townsfolk were in a sleigh. No, seriously, there's a point to this story.
Was it Santa Claus?
No. He said and so here they are, these 2 sleighs being pulled by reindeer, going out to a rink in the middle of nowhere, which is dilapidated. I mean, it's like falling apart. So he said, and there's Datsyuk, and he sees him play, and he's wowed by him. He's really wowed by him. Not many people know about him. Jim Nill said a year later, and this goes to show you how difficult it is to find diamonds in the rough and why the Red Wings are extraordinary as far as finding them in the rough.
Yeah.
The next year, same scenario, different player, obviously. He's in his reindeer sleigh. The town folks are in his reindeer sleigh. And 29 other reindeer sleighs are there by every team in the NHL.
That's amazing.
They were all there, and they were all going out to that same rink to watch one player. That's how it's changed over the years. So finding the diamonds in the rough, and I give them more credit, great credit, but it's each and every year it's getting more and more difficult. And and I really think that if they can find somebody like that, I mean, let's face it. You know who's the diamond in the rough now? Current prospects. It's Elmer. There's no doubt about it. From the moment they drafted Elmer in the 6th round, he is. I just love saying this. I just love saying Elmer. I can't help it. Elmer.
It's a great name.
But Elmer is that diamond in the rough.
Sure.
He could be that diamond in the rough. We've asked Steve about it and all that. So they're out there. You just have to do your work. But remember, now you have 32 teams fighting for that same guy.
Right, and I'm sure Steve Yzerman would take a reindeer sleigh anywhere to find that prospect.
I'm sure
or
he
Hakan
has.
Anderson, the European scout. But a lot happening in the offseason for the Detroit Red Wings. A lot of exciting moments we have coming up. So stay tuned to all of Detroit Red Wings social media platforms for all of the latest updates. Thank you so much for watching the Word on Word. The Word on Woodward, Ken and Art, thank you guys so much. And thank you guys for
Carley.
tweeting with the hashtag LGRW with your thoughts. And a big thank you to Labatt Blue for presenting the Word on Woodward today. We'll see you guys soon. Let's go Red Wings.
Go Wings.